You know what's actually hard? It's not just failing, but it's losing even after you had promised yourself a win. Hi, I'm Eddie. I'm the founder of Kwalwazi Creatives. I'm a storyteller and a strategist. But before all of that, I was a varsity dropout sitting in a room in Mafikeng, staring at a laptop and watching all of my dreams one by one flop in real time. I've had clients disappear on me. I felt the humiliation that comes with running around in circles while everyone else's path takes off. But I've also learned that, sometimes God doesn't fix the story immediately. He just walks with you while it's still broken. And today we are having an unfiltered conversation about the rubble of failure, the silence of God, and why the flop might actually be the most important part of your journey or process, rather. In my journey, I think one of the things that I've learned is that God is so powerful. God is so sovereign. Because the more I failed is the more I realized that God is actually so powerful. And this is why I believe in him so much. Not because life treated me gently, but because that was the only way to survive. And there were days, I'm not gonna lie, or there still are days when I wake up in the morning and I just feel like waking up today was such a miracle, God. I don't know how, but God. And I think that has taught me something about myself that, I think I have a different lens when it comes to faith. I think I have a different experience when it comes to faith because there's this assumption that, faith means that everything is going to work out, but not in my experience. Because after I dropped out of varsity, I thought my life was over. I honestly thought it was over. I thought everyone else has a plan, but I don't even have a path. And to be honest, I didn't. I tried to start my business. I had clients, I had my hopes up, and suddenly everything went south. Some of the clients I had, they disappeared on me. And I thought about giving up. And some days I almost did. I remember one client specifically where I thought, now I'm getting the bag. It was kind of like a sure thing where I poured so much of my energy, my time, my late nights, my ideas into that project. And just like that, they disappeared. I honestly felt crushed, and I remember I was sitting in my room staring at my laptop and thinking about everything I have lost. How I pitched ideas to a lot of brands that no one was actually interested in. And I felt like I was running around in circles, It was very humiliating, and honestly, it made me question everything. For those who don't know, I am a creative strategist and a storyteller. I'm the founder of Kwalwazi Creatives, a culturally rooted creative agency based in South Africa. What that means is I help brands communicate with young audiences, most particularly the Gen Z, in ways that feel honest, real, and culturally relevant. For me, it's not even about numbers or followers. Influence isn't just about the number of likes you have or the number of followers, but it's about impact, about resonance and the stories we choose to tell. So everything I do, from brand strategy, influencer marketing, social media management, paid campaigns, to story-led creative direction, comes from my whole journey, my whole life. From growing up in Mafikeng and feeling very unseen, from failing over and over and over and over again, and from learning what it actually means to stay put and to stay present even when My whole life felt like it was collapsing. So I do this work because I know what it feels like to be on the other end of success. I know what it's like to sit in the mess and to feel stuck, to feel invisible, and to feel uncertain. But I also know what it feels like to start moving again, to start from scratch, to build something so meaningful from the rubble of failure. And for weeks I carried that with me. It became a weight I didn't know how to put down. And that's when I turned to God in a way that I hadn't before. And I'm not talking about the, oh God, I thank you for everything kind of way. Not the, oh God, please bless my business. Please help me get clients. That won't disappear on me kind of way. I mean the honest, exhausted, kind of broken way of turning to God to say, God, I don't know what I'm doing. I am failing. I've tried everything I know and I still don't even have what I wanted. I don't see the rewards to this. I don't see what I'm actually doing, but I'm still here. So I'm giving this to you. Basically, I'm surrendering and I don't know what's next. But I know one thing for sure, that I can't fix this myself. So please just stay with me kind of way. And to be honest, God did, He did stay with me. And I'm not talking about the kind way God gives you instant success. You wake up tomorrow and, ooh, you're such a star. Not even by returning any of the clients that disappeared the next day, but by sitting with me in that failure, by giving me the courage to keep showing up, even when I had no proof that, this time things will work. But something slowly but surely, it started to shift. I started noticing small little wins that I would ignore before. It would be just a conversation with someone, or a connection I have already forgotten. And it wasn't big, it wasn't dramatic, but it was a movement. And that taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. That, sometimes God doesn't fix your story, but He walks with you while your story is broken. He sits with you in that failure. He sits with you in your loss. He sits with you in your empty bank account. More, you don't even know where are you going to get the money. But He will sit with you in moments where everyone else will tell you, just give up. It's not working. You can see, that's proof enough that it's not working. Just give up. But God has a way of teaching you to keep going anyway. And that's how I learned that, failure is not the opposite of success. It's actually part of it. It's the part of a process of becoming. Because after losing all those clients, after flopping all those projects and dropping out of varsity, I realized I was learning something that no class could teach. I was learning more to be patient, to be more resilient, to have more faith and more humility. I realized that my story wasn't really about avoiding failure, but it was about showing up when everything else is falling apart. And now when I think about the clients I lost, or the deals that flopped while I had all my hopes up, or the projects that didn't even work, I don't see them as failures, or I don't see them as loss anymore, but I see them as lessons. I see them as steps and as proof that even in your most broken parts of life, I wasn't abandoned. There was someone carrying me. And it's quite funny, I'm wearing the Carried by Grace merchandise. This is my merch, but these are the prototypes. But yeah, and there's a story unfolding at the back, and it talks about how I lost out on so much. So it's just a stark reminder that I wasn't really abandoned, that there was someone who was caring. And that's why I still talk about God till this day. Even when I don't know if everything is going to work out, I'm not talking about Him because I got success, not because I have everything figured out now, but because He stayed with me. He stayed when I failed. He stayed when I lost everything. He stayed when no one else did, because I lost so much. I even lost friends in the process. I lost parts and pieces of myself. I even lost my mom. Can you imagine dropping out of varsity, opening a podcast, starting a business, then losing your mom? My whole journey is such a funny story, because after dropping out of varsity, I opened this very podcast. I started this very podcast, right? Where I said, I just want to have unfiltered conversations, to speak about my journey, to have, those unfiltered conversations with people I would regard as my chummies. To talk about my life experiences and to have real-time conversations. And somehow, somewhere along the way, my heart kind of shifted, and I wasn't really sure of what was I doing and what was the purpose behind it, even though I got some of the most positive remarks to say, oh, this is nice, I listened to your podcast, that can resonate. But still, I just felt like, there's just a bit of, there's something missing, and I just don't know what's missing. And I guess maybe I judged myself too quickly. And after the podcast, I started my business. I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm venturing into starting a business now. I'm like, we're going all in this time. And then my mom fell sick, very sick, and then she passed on with her sore wrist on a bed of roses. I talk about God a lot because He stayed with me. He stayed when I lost everything, even when no one else did. So if you're listening to this, maybe you have been there too. Maybe you lost a client. Maybe some of the plans and ideas you had, they flopped. Maybe you failed at school or at work or at relationships. Maybe you think you can't keep going. You're so done. Like I was at some point in my life. I want you to hear me clearly when I say this. You can't see it yet, but the part of you that is still here is proof that someone stayed with you. And if you stay too and keep showing up, even broken, even tired, even scared, even when you don't even know what you're doing, you will see that what felt like the end or what felt like failure was actually the beginning, sorry. But yeah, I think we've reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for tuning in, everybody. Till next time, love you loads.